Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, just as a follow-up, a small question to you. It looks like we are more or less clear the mid-term and long-term future of the Far East is well secured. But as the tradition goes, normally in Russia we have two largest economic forums, the Far Eastern Economic Forum focused on this region, Asia and the Pacific region, and of course the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that has always served as a kind of a gateway to Europe. And it's quite symbolic if we are to look at the mascot of Russia, the two-headed eagle. One head of the eagle is looking to the west, the other to the east. You've just returned from your trip to China, to the SCO summit. And one gets the impression that the eagle, the mascot of Russia, is increasingly turning both of its heads towards the east. And we've seen newspaper covering it actively and showing photos of you and President Xi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and it's quite symbolic. It was mentioned by many media that this is a new union of the elephant, the dragon and the bear. So my question is, what is the role of the bear in this union? What is the role of this bear? Well, a bear is a bear. Well, but the bear seems to be quite a husky animal, a hush one. Well, you mentioned the double-headed eagle looking to the west and the east. Well, there is also south, you know. Well, it looks like that Russia is heading towards southeast, if I may say so. We've been discussing it with our colleagues repeatedly, and I've always been saying that expansion of our interaction and our joint work with our friends in the Asia-Pacific region, our cooperation with the global south, is not related or conditioned by the current political situation. Take example of my meeting with President Xi. We have started joint work with President Xi 20 years ago. And it is not at all conditioned by the current environment. It is conditioned by the mutual shared interests. Our economies complement one another. We're neighbors. We have a lot of shared interests, shared approaches, shared values, traditional values, by the way. I'd like to emphasize that. We in Russia had a good understanding of the development of the global economy. And the whole world knows well that the global economy is developing through advanced pace and primarily driven by the new growth drivers, new technologies, new advancements, and that is what we're focusing on. The more so that we have good neighborly relations with many countries, the People's Republic of China, of course, India, Indonesia. And look how quickly those countries are evolving. Indonesia has almost 300 million residents. This is a huge market. There are some smaller countries that are also evolving fast. Take example of Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. We have particularly good relations with Vietnam that we've been nurturing for decades. It's only natural that we use those relations. It's not that we're pivoting somewhere. It's just a reaction to objective processes happening in the world and happening to the world economy. But we never refused from cooperation with those countries who are willing to cooperate with us, including other Asian countries. I do not want to put anyone at an inconvenient spot and to catch them there. But there is a number of companies from various countries that are still active at the Russian market. If they were to be guided by the current geopolitical environment, one may have expected them to leave, and they should be encountering some problems. They are, but they are still in Russia. They continue operating in Russia. More than that, they have plans to expand their presence. Due to political reasons, many European companies have chosen to leave. That's true. They left by making huge losses. We know that. We have contacts intact. Many are waiting. They are waiting, and they will wait long enough for the moment when the geopolitical limitations that are available now will fall, and then those companies would be willing to come back. We're not closing the door to anyone. We're not turning our back to anyone. we have a lot of stability and predictability in our foreign policy, including foreign economic policy. And I guess this is exactly one of the key competitive advantages of our country, because stability is crucial for business, especially if we're talking about business. So we are not turning our back on anyone. We haven't pushed anyone out of the country. Those who want to come back are allowed to come back based on the current situation and terms. Then, as a follow-up to the question and the ability for companies to come back, if I may, in fact, the interaction between the dragon and the elephant, it's not something that I said. President Xi used this metaphor, and later on the media added the bear to this triad. Of course, a bear is a symbol of Russia, but we're here, the Far East. And the biggest tiger in the world is the local tiger, the local breed here. The Amur tiger, naturally. Now, coming back to the issue of companies coming back, I guess we could agree that there is a global trend for protectionism. Some countries are closing up, focusing on their internal affairs and internal developments, as opposed to try and engage external competitors or investors. But once again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm not an expert in the economy. It's just my observation. What do you think? This policy of protectionism, is it a greater good or is it something bad? That's something bad. That's bad to those applying principles of protectionism, and this is bad for global trade. It leads to separatism, regional and country-specific separatism. It brings no good to those who are trying to use protectionistic measures, because the world of today is extremely interconnected, simply due to the current technological development. And being all closed in your own silo as a country is no good, because it would inevitably lead to deterioration of international competitiveness of this country. So Russia stays open to cooperation with all countries of the world, first and foremost open to those countries who are willing to work with us, our friends. But we are not self-isolating, and we believe, I'm sure the absolute majority of people seated in this room would agree, that this open position is favorable to everyone sharing this policy. Thank you.
My question is now for Mr. Putin. So you spoke yesterday about large investments into the Far East, and yes, we speak about enormous amounts of money, and you spoke about serious goals. What are we going to do with all that? You know, money is not the most important thing. Most important is to identify priorities and ensure appropriate organization, also collaboration among various agencies and organizations should be ensured, and they all should work for the common goal. And regional authorities, on the one hand, should work with investors, and on the other hand, investors should guarantee, and I'm sure here in this audience there are colleagues who are planning to do something, and these investors, they should guarantee, they should ensure that the power generated will be consumed. And then those who are going to generate it, then they will make sure that there will be enough capacity and the whole network and grid available. Then the investments will be working for everybody's benefits. So what is needed is collaboration. It is the connected work of all these agencies and investors. And then, yes, we speak about the demand, and there are various regulators and controlling authorities. They should carefully analyze how in the Arctic all these modern technologies can be and should be used. And if we ensure all this, then there won't be any problem with the financial side, and there will be great results and success, and this will be good for the federal budget, and this will mean tax revenues and all that. Right. What about coal industry? It goes through some difficult times, and yesterday you spoke about gas, and in the Far East probably there will be a lack of gas, and we need to enrich the supply here. So what should we start with in this respect? You referred to coal industry, and you said that now they're going through quite difficult times. Yes, this difficulty means that the size of our coal industry is quite high, but the situation in the market has changed. But largely, we need to focus on the domestic demand and our internal domestic market. We have a lot of coal. We produce a lot of coal, and the whole stock is for 900 years. 9 centuries, but in order to utilize all the power resources, we need modern technologies, and this is what we need to develop. And if the domestic market will consume all this, then there won't be any problems and no difficult times. If this consumption is efficient, then there are no difficulties with the external, international markets, and then this influence will be minimized, and we can in such a way easily regulate the functioning of all industries, including the power industry. And this is one of our major goals. And as for the external situation, international markets, we need to take it into account. However, in order to be more flexible, more stable and sustainable, we need to focus our domestic consumption.
Mr. President, the next question follows the discussion of the power of Siberia. The memo has been signed. It's made a major splash, and the agreement spans 30 years. I haven't seen specific prices anywhere. Well, obviously, this is due to some commercial secret issue. But anyway, the price is going to be lower than those on the European market. Back in the Soviet times, we used to have a joke. We provide oil to Europe using the Friendship pipeline, in fact, based on Friendship. What about gas to China? Well, this is something that brings mutual benefits. As to prices, well, those prices are first market-based, and second, they are calculated on the basis of the same formula that we used to employ when providing gas to Europe. We used the same formula. Well, the components of the formula, the inputs, may be different in different regions of the world. In Europe, it's one set of inputs. In Asia, it's a different set of inputs. However, the formula for pricing is the same, is identical. It's purely market-based. And those have been long negotiations. And when the participants of economic activities are trying to negotiate something and agree on something, and the majority of people here are of the same kind, you would all realize that this is not an easy process. Everybody is trying to get the outcome both the negotiating parties are interested in. And this outcome, in the course of joint multi-year work done by Gazprom and Chinese partners, this outcome has been achieved. So once again, I want to congratulate everybody with that. This is one of the indeed largest energy projects in the world. Thank you. We're talking cooperation in Asia-Pacific. And you get me back to cooperation with our friends, our allies. The Chinese People's Republic, We've not mentioned India. There are many plans connected with that. But look, the United States is also part of Asia-Pacific. There are many stakeholders out there who would like to continue our engagement or start it anew. But we're talking Asia-Pacific, right? And we have some very good proposals on how to work with U.S. companies in Alaska. And there are resources available there. And we've got technology of producing and liquefying natural gas. And those technologies are much more efficient compared to what our American partners have. And they are aware of that. In fact, at the level of businesses, they are ready to cooperate. It's not up to us. I mean, we are ready, provided some political decisions are made. And that's the area where we're going to proceed. We can cooperate in the Arctic, too. And by the way, with our Chinese friends, we discussed the possibility of working in a tripartite arrangements on some of our Arctic fields already now. And in principle, all those possible options are on the table. It just takes some political decisions, but it is possible. And again, this would have been mutually beneficial, be it natural gas or oil. Who puts the obstacles to this process? Well, that's not a question for me to answer. I'm sorry, we're not putting any obstacles to this process. Look, at the beginning, you asked about our eagle, one of the symbols of our country, right? It looks both ways. I mean, two heads look both ways. Look at the eagle right now. Is it turning away from anybody? No, absolutely not. It continues to look both ways. Thank you.
And immediately after your address, I'd like to ask you about the meeting that happened yesterday, where it was openly stated that Russia will reciprocate on China's decision to offer visa-free regime. So my question is the following. Of course, development of tourism is good for our economies, it's good for cultural cooperation between our countries, but my main question to you is the matter of settlements. President Putin, imagine I want to go to China as a tourist. Visa and MasterCard are no longer available. Union Pay is an option. I got Union Pay card a while ago, but it is no longer accepted. It no longer works. And even those who can work are only offering settlements in rubles. So the only option would be to take cash, then exchange it for USD, or be more creative. I do not know, for example, how to use cryptocurrency, but maybe that's an option. My question to you, do you think there are certain prerequisites to simplify settlements between Russia and China? And the same question applies to Mr. Li Hongjong. First of all, I want to say that the decision of the political leadership, and I'd like to emphasize that this is a decision made on the political level, the decision to offer visa-free regime for residents of Russia to go to the territory of China was unexpected to us. We were not aware of such plans, and it was indeed a very pleasant surprise, and clearly this is a token of friendship that we highly appreciate, and undoubtedly that would contribute to quite a sharp increase in the number of tourists, inbound and outbound trips, and certainly would create more favorable environment for business and would definitely bring our two countries closer. That is obvious. Because in order to go to any country, including China, a regular citizen would have to go to one place to get a certificate, to collect them all, bring them to the embassy. Well, all they have to do now is just buy a plane ticket and get on board. No red tape, no bureaucracy, and undoubtedly that would contribute to greater friendship and cooperation between our two countries, and we will certainly reciprocate this token of friendship, and we will do the same by offering visa-free regime to China. Now, as for tourist trips, certainly settlements is an issue, payment settlements, and we are working on this matter proactively. It is high on the agenda for many financial institutes. I'm not going to dwell into the details right now because I wouldn't want to cause any excessive difficulties by this commentary for any potential future solutions. Obviously, we need to take into account the interests of financial institutes that may face certain level of sanctions and pressure. But the solution is available. We understand perfectly well that we need to create more favorable environment for tourists. Obviously, the most preferable option to make the use of the Mir payment system available or similar Chinese tools. Maybe they could be merged. Maybe it would be an option to use the banking cards issued by the third parties. But I can assure you that the central banks of both countries are thinking and are trying to find a solution to the matter. Just at one of the working meetings in the course of the visit of our delegation to China, the leaders of financial institutions and ministers of finance had meetings that was happening in the presence of President Xi and myself. The dialogue is ongoing, and I'm sure the solution will be found. Well, then I guess all I can hope for is the QR codes we could use as a means of payment. Now, from a nice, friendly agenda, I'd like to move over to a slightly different part of the world that is a bit less friendly towards us. Mr. President, you've answered to a lot of questions from fellow journalists at the press conference in China. Those were related to the Ukrainian crisis, relationship between Russia and the USA, and everything related to the special military operation. Just yesterday, there was a meeting conducted in Paris, the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. There were no specific decisions made based on the outcome of the meeting so far. Those were just talks, and it was announced that there is an intention to place boots on the ground in Ukraine. But President Trump reacted by saying that he would call you. My first question is, has President Trump called you already? And my second question is, what do you think of the suggestions made by the other party? President Trump and I have an open dialogue. There is an arrangement in place that if needed, we can get in touch, talk to one another. President Trump knows that I am open to those dialogues. I know that he is also open towards communication with us, but so far, based on the consultations taking place in Europe, we haven't had any communication with President Trump, and it would be hard for me to have those. Actually, I just returned from China, came directly here to the forum. But I can assure you that there are no issues with communication whatsoever. As for the potential placement of the troops in Ukraine, well, that was one of the root causes for the Ukrainians' desire to join NATO. So should there any troops be placed in Ukraine, especially now in the course of the military action, we would treat those as righteous goals for an attack. A righteous target that we will aim for. Should there be any arrangement that would allow us to achieve long-lasting peace, then I see no point for those troops to be positioned on the territory of Ukraine. As simple as that. If all the arrangements are achieved and the agreement is successful, no one should doubt that Russia would fully comply with the achieved arrangements. We shall treat the security guarantees with respect, and those are the security guarantees that have to be elaborated and work both for Russia and Ukraine. And just to reiterate, Russia will undoubtedly comply with those arrangements. But so far, nobody has discussed the security arrangements and assurances with Russia. Well, then all we have to do is wait. The time will show, I guess. My next question is on peace settlement. Just yesterday, you were saying that you recognize there is potential. You even invited Zelensky to visit Moscow, but Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs officially refused. Maybe I misunderstand that, but it looks like in the future we can't expect any nearest and immediate step to peaceful settlement. Well, I would require you to stick closer to the issues of cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region, where we are today. Although I do understand that we first need to attend to those most pressing issues and get them resolved. Otherwise, any kind of cooperation is troublesome. So this question is to be expected. What I can say is the following. Just recently, the leadership of the Ukrainian regime was not particularly nice commenting on any potential cooperation with Russia, to put it softly. The Ukrainian regime excluded any potential conflicts. Now we hear them begging for those contacts, or at least offering those contacts. I've been saying it repeatedly that I am ready to those contacts. Well, the press conference in Beijing that you referred to is where I openly stated that I do not see any particular sense in having those talks, because it would be virtually impossible to reach agreements on the key matters with the Ukrainian side. Even if there is a political will expressed, which I strongly doubt, there are also legal and technical issues. And those mean that any kind of negotiations on the territorial matters have to be confirmed and validated at the referendum. That is what is stated in the Ukrainian constitution. In order to conduct the referendum, the martial law has to be stopped, and you can't conduct a referendum in a situation of a martial law. If the martial law is stopped in the country, then the presidential election have to be conducted immediately. And once the referendum is conducted, or if the referendum is conducted, irrespectively of the outcome of the referendum, the decision of the Constitutional Court has to be issued, and the Constitutional Court is not really operational in Ukraine. Because as far as I understand, once the Constitutional Court received a question to make a judgment on the legitimacy of the president, the Constitutional Court tried not to react to that, and then actually the head of Constitutional Court was banned from coming to his office to do his work. And the chairman of the Supreme Court is in prison, accused of corruption. And I'm sure it is very well known that there is plenty of corruption in Ukraine, but I do not know why you had to cherry-pick the head of the Supreme Court and put him to prison on this particular matter. But what we see in reality is that judicial system in Ukraine is virtually no longer existent. It's been exterminated, and this is just one more illustration of the so-called democratic nature of the Ukrainian regime. So this is an everlasting process that leads us into nowhere. But nonetheless, we have confirmed that we are ready to have meetings on the highest level. But look, Ukraine wants to have this meeting. They are suggesting we have this meeting. My answer was, I'm ready. Please do come. I guarantee you we will take care of security matters and we create good working environment. You have my word, 100% guarantee. But what we see is that Ukrainian side is saying, we want to have a meeting with you, but you go to a particular location for this meeting. Well, I guess they're asking for too much. So I will repeat, if somebody wants to meet us, we are ready. And the best time to have this meeting is the capital of Russia, the hero city of Moscow. President Putin, thank you very much for your response. If I may, just one more question. And then I promise we will continue about the Far East only. I wanted to ask you about the root causes of the special military operation. And again, at the press conference in Beijing, you stated that you see no obstacles for Ukraine to become the EU member. And exactly the same day, we saw the official address by the ex-president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, who had friendly relations to Russia. And he also used to say that he was looking towards the West and saw a Western-oriented future for Ukraine. It looks like you were talking about the same things. Well, I do not know how you interpreted that, but I can tell you how it actually happens. The situation evolves in the following manner. Indeed, Ukraine set itself an objective, and it's still accurate, to become an EU member. And this is a choice Ukraine is entirely authorized to make. It is entirely up to Ukraine to choose how they structure their international relations, how they structure their economic ties. Back then, when Mr. Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine, the problem for us was that when Ukraine would join the European economic ties, it would cause some economic problems to Russia, because Ukraine was part of the free trade area. We had free custom borders to Ukraine, and that would have certain consequences to us. So Ukraine would have to weigh all the odds and choose. Potentially, Ukraine would lose something by enjoying the free customs borders to Russia, and it, of course, would acquire something by joining the EU. And this is exactly the equation that President Yanukovych tried to settle. And he was quite upset when he saw the results, because if Ukraine was to open its borders to highly competitive products from EU, it would fully destroy manufacturing and production in Ukraine, and would also destroy the possibility of having any kind of economic ties with Russia. So President Yanukovych didn't want Ukraine to join the EU. He wanted Ukraine to become the EU member. I do not know what he would say now, but I know he was aiming for that, provided that the terms for Ukraine are acceptable. This matter had nothing to do with us, except the only fact that it would affect our interest in terms of cooperation with Ukraine economically wise. But otherwise, we never objected to any kind of integrational processes between Ukraine and Europe. As for security matters, this is a completely different question. Again, former President Yanukovych and the chairman of the government of Ukraine back then objected to the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member. And that is a matter that is directly affecting Russia in terms of securing our long-term interests. So what happened as a result of coup d'etat? Yanukovych was removed from power. That was a legitimate president who objected to the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member. And as a result of this bloody coup, they brought those forces to power that supported the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member, and they still insist on this idea. This is something that we are not ready to agree to, despite the fact that every country has a choice to secure its national interests. Again, that kind of matters cannot be resolved without taking into account Russia's interests, because there is a clear rule stipulated in the European documents. The security of one country cannot be guaranteed through or at the cost of security of another country. Thank you. Russia, and especially so the Far East, is rich in mineral resources. Among others, it is also very rich in fisheries. I looked at some statistics and I wanted to share it with you. According to the statistics, in 2022, export of crab meat to China set an all-time high. It is 41,000 tons. The Russian crab meat consumed domestically was just around 8,000 tons for the same period. So it's a bit of a paradox. Looks like crabs are only moving towards China, Korea, and towards the east. I'm wondering whether there are sufficient processing capacities in the Far East so that we're not just getting those crabs and sell them through the auctions, but potentially process and sell domestically. Live crabs is the most expensive produce, and they are therefore selling it abroad because it's more expensive, it's more profitable. Well, it's not just about pricing, although prices are important and play a key role in this equation. But in order to enhance supply of crab meat in the Russian region, we would primarily need to address logistic issues, because we either carry it by rail, which is quite expensive, or by air, which is even more expensive. That is the problem. Delivery of fresh seafood, be that crab meat or fish, it normally goes to high-end restaurants. Why? Because these products have to be brought by air, and this is very expensive. So if we would take care of logistic chains, then that would change the situation. But I have to say that generally the produce of the fisheries here in the Far East, if I remember correctly, is quite efficient, and about 75% of all the fisheries productions is processed here in the Far East. So today the biggest problem is logistics. It's a delicate issue and we're going to focus on that. So right now we are already paying a lot of attention to the matter, and we intend to increase our opportunities to make sure that seafood, fish products, fisheries and crabs are evenly distributed between all regions of Russia. We are aware of this problem, the more so that according to the norms of the Ministry of Healthcare, so far we are a little bit below the standard and recommended consumption of fish. About 28 kilos of fish should be consumed per capita per annum. And right now, the indicator for us is about 23 or 23.5 kilos of fish per capita per annum. So right now, we are addressing this issue as well. So definitely, there is work to be done. We are thinking about it, and hopefully this issue will be resolved.
Wonderful. Since we have mentioned transport and its accessibility, in the Far East, the domestic flights is a matter of not just comfort, but a matter of survival, because there's no other way of reaching other regions. And I would like to share a little story. There is a friend of mine living in Khabarovsk, and he had to fly to Vladivostok on some business trip. There were no flights, and those living in Vladivostok know that it is a difficult matter to find the ticket, the plane ticket. And some people tell me that they need some extra tires to get there via the car, so he spends 4 hours on the airport, and he fulfills all the procedures, and on his way to Vladivostok, due to bad weather conditions, they are sent to another airport in Khabarovsk. That means that a person spent 24 hours coming from Khabarovsk to Khabarovsk. That is a joke, but it explains a lot. When are we going to address this issue with medium-range aircraft? Because right now I've got this information that the state leasing company has signed a contract on leasing 50 Baikal aircraft. Maybe I missed something. I do not know whether Mr. Trutnev is here. We talked to him and he said that there is no Baikal. An aircraft was purchased, but it is not existing. Maybe you missed me. Maybe I should go to the Prosecutor General's office. Are there any prospects for domestic flights in the Far East? Unfortunately, when during the Soviet times there was quite a well-developed network of domestic air companies, it was lost in 1990s, in early 2000s. Little attention was paid to that, and you have mentioned a friend of yours. He was forced to fly from one key city to another via Moscow. We have established a local air company, and the key issue here is to purchase aircraft, medium-range aircraft for short trips. There are a lot of plans of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time to address these issues. There is Baikal, there are other aircraft that are small, they should replace An-2. But this is a work in progress, and I wouldn't hide. At times we argue with our staff, so to speak. They need to accelerate this work. There are specific plans, there are specific models. They already fly And I've been shown them what we needed to have the large-scale production of this aircraft and to make them operational, and we will do our utmost to speed up this process. This is a problem that is still here, and it is a common knowledge. We will address it. I would not list all the aircraft. I'm talking about Baikal and other aircraft. They showed it to me, but we need to switch to the large-scale production. Thank you. In your remarks, you talked about the growth of investment. Foreign investment is on the rise as compared to the past 4 years. I have the following question. If we take a look at the overall investment climate and where this investment, foreign investment, comes from, we're talking about several key countries, including the PRC. And in your address, I believe you have focused on the technological progress and the need to develop high-tech, complex production. Nevertheless, it's not a secret that money is invested in some resources, oil, gas, coal production, and the relevant infrastructure. Hence, the logical question begs itself. Is there a risk that we are stuck in this raw materials trap that will be considered as just an investment partner in this domain? There's no such a trap, no such risks. There would be such risks if we didn't do anything. You have pointed out my address, but one of the key tasks, since we're talking about the investment in the region, we need to make this region innovational. And that is not a problem of our partners that they invest in mineral resources production. That is our problem, and we need to create conditions for innovation, to create conditions so that people that are necessary for these areas could come here, and there is a certain trend. In this regard, we need to create the relevant environment, and rest assured, our partners would be glad to invest the promising industries, and the implementation of the relevant plans would also benefit them. There's no way other than that, and I'm positive that we will implement these plans. By the way, together with our partners and friends, we discussed these issues in Beijing, and overall we need to build our effort, focusing it on high-tech economy. That's what we're going to do. That is the future of our economies. That is our common success, and this also has to do with the region of the Far East. Thank you. I'd like to ask you a question on the economy, a more general question. I took a look at Mr. Miller. When we're talking about natural resources, well, it is a basic understanding that you need to drill a hole and you'll get oil or gas. Mr. Michelson is here, and he knows a thing or two about LNG, and the technologies that he achieved are unique in the world. This is a high-tech area, and I'm not exaggerating here. It's not a joke. It's not a hyperbole. The same goes to the gas sector. Gazprom is cooperating with our Chinese friends and partners, and it is not confined to simply supplies. They have the so-called strategic partnership, which means that people are working together to develop high-tech industries, including gas sector, and there is a lot to work on in order to ensure the efficiency and the benefit for the suppliers and for the buyers. A great deal of high-tech solutions should be put in place. And this is the work within the strategic partnership between the interested companies. It has been established and it is underway. The thing is that we need to expand it to cover related areas, promising areas such as artificial intelligence and the like. And that's what we're going to do, certainly. We have an arrangement with China in aviation. I will move to another city in Russia and we will deal with engine manufacturing. But we have plans in aviation, and incidentally, aviation sector is quite developed in the Far East, both combat and civil. Superjet 100 is manufactured in the Far East, and the same goes for shipbuilding. Thank you. I could joke that I didn't know how our plenary session would go, and I went to the headhunter and I was searching for the jobs. But what kind of jobs are needed in the Far East? Well, drivers with high wages, and I haven't seen any IT experts that are needed. There are no job descriptions for IT experts. There was one job for developer, but that's not much. According to Sber Market Analytics, the business turnover is growing faster than nationwide. You've mentioned that already, but that is because of production. IT is lagging behind. In your view, should there be such a demand from employers? How can we address this issue? Should these IT experts come from other regions? How can we attract them to stay in the Russian Far East and treat this region as a home and not just some temporary place? You know, I have covered this extensively in my introductory remarks, and I said that young people come to this region. There are prospects, they're needed here, and we see this trend. However, this trend should be supported by the state. We need to shape a new image for the economic development of the region, primarily due to high tech. I do not know what you have seen on the websites, but definitely the CEOs of companies working here tell me constantly that there are no highly skilled experts. For instance, on Zvezda shipbuilding plant, we have been building high capacity vessel that is unique, and we need investment here. Everything that has to do with high tech should be developed so that we would develop not only the mineral resources of the Arctic, of the Far East, but also to make this region part of a high tech production in Russia as a whole. And that is our goal in mind, and that will be the new stage of the development of the region. President Putin, there is this case of skyrocketing wages. A driver gets 400,000 rubles, and that is another coin. Is it okay? And is it okay that they get such wages? I believe that the more people have, the better. I support you because it matters. We're talking about economy. If the wage is higher, a person spends more. If he spends more, then our products are more on demand, because as a rule, people want to purchase goods that are produced in our plants. That means that that is another economic factor that is positive, besides the fact that people start to live better. Thank you. And certainly, since we're talking about wages, I want to talk about the overall situation in the Russian economy. A lot has been said in the forum. I'm not the only one here. I understand, Mr. President, but I have so much questions to you. I will definitely ask questions to our guests, but now I would like to delve on the economic situation. German Graf said that he states a technical stagnation of the Russian economy. Do you agree with him? No. Mr. Graf, that's how it is. Well, he knows that. We keep in touch with him. He participates in many meetings of ours that we have at my office with the government and the central bank. And some members of the government have the same view. since allegedly the central bank keeps the high rate in order to combat inflation. You complained about high prices in shops, but the goal is for ensure lower prices for consumers and for businesses. We can talk about many things. I do not like to make any assessments. I have my opinion. I do not like to make any assessments on the work of the central bank. And by the way, in the international financial community, the Central Bank of Russia is highly respected, and I know this firsthand. But we're doing it deliberately. We have 4.3% of GDP growth 2 years ago, 4.4% growth last year. The inflation has increased a bit. We need to address macroeconomic problems. To this end, we need to ensure calm and smooth decrease in prices in order to prevent the price hike. Indeed, I know about that. We talk on a daily basis. Just yesterday we had this conversation. Some believe that there's been a cool down. However, the loaning is still ongoing. You can ask Mr. Gref himself. The rate has decreased. In certain sectors, the situation is quite difficult, and there are some people here who understand it full well. But at the same time, everybody understands that if there is an inflation that is on the rise, we cannot make any projections, any plans for years to come. That is a very subtle matter. You can ask banks, the head of the VTB, he would tell you, indeed, they do too much, the cool down is too much. Well, he complains a lot about the interest rate. Indeed, and the Economic Development Ministry will tell you the same thing. And, well, there's truth to their words. And I believe that at the end of the day, we'll be able to address this issue to keep the necessary growth rates with the minimum level of inflation. I believe that it would be enough for such format of discussion. Thank you.
Что, так сказать, парировать в ответ?
Нет, мы это обсуждаем с нашими друзьями из Лаоса. И вчера только что тоже об этом говорили. Мы в контакте с нашими партнерами из третьих стран, в том числе из Вьетнама, и действительно обсуждаем.
We are discussing all these logistic possibilities and discussing how to expand that. And we have opportunities as for the railway lines here in Vladivostok. I know that this is a sensitive question. We need to create them to make them better and bigger, and there are a lot of them in the territory of Vladivostok. You mentioned that as well. They occupy not the biggest, they occupy a large part. It's in eastern polygon, Trans-Siberian line, and Amur line. There are more of them in the direction of the Sea of Okhotsk. We are going to work on that to develop it further. I speak about it all the time, and the colleagues discuss it as well. This is a huge opportunity for the development in the Far East and for the country in general. The volumes of transportation increased greatly. Nothing to say about that in this regard. And Trans-Arctic corridor will be developed as well. There is a lot to work on together with the Northern Sea route. As for our friends in the Asia-Pacific regions, I hope that all our efforts to develop transport logistics with regions of the Far East will be favorable in this regard and will affect positively for trade relations with our friends in Laos. Thank you very much. You're welcome. I would like to note that this is my first time in Vladivostok. I am greatly impressed by the dimensions and the fact that the city is very interesting and it's very clean. It's very interactive. There is what you see It has its authenticity. I went to the tour, and there is a contrast, and I was surprised that the central cities look great, but when you go to the side of Pivek, you won't see a golden bridge there. How can we make it this way to make life comfortable in the faraway cities, for them to have their own authenticity and beauty? I'm speaking about the infrastructure. Everywhere it is like this. The center of the city looks differently from the suburbs. This is a question to be asked to the regional authorities, to the city authorities, for the development of our villages, to make it comfortable for the population. As for the small cities, we have programs for development of the residential areas. There are about 800 cities, 804 with the population less than 50,000 people. It's a huge program for development of small cities in Russia. There are a lot of areas, and it's quite effective for small cities, but we need to expand this work. As for the Far Eastern and the Arctic regions, we have a separate program. There are 22 cities. There are resources allocated for the development in those areas. The work is underway on some of them. I mentioned that already, and this is one of the key areas. Together with our colleagues, we discussed it. They were at the beginning of their way. It was very effective and very demanded work. And speaking about the necessity to give an impulse of the development of the economy, I said it as well. We need to attract prepared specialists that need conditions, including social conditions, kindergartens, schools, education, medical care. Everything shall develop as a whole thing. There are programs for 22 cities. We have financing for these programs, and I'm convinced we are going to expand this program. We are speaking about things related to the costs. I'm trying to ask about the deficit of the budget. In 2025, it was planned to have $1.2 trillion rubles. It increased to 1.8 trillion, and changes are provisioned. I heard 8 trillion. This number, I am not connected with the economic area. What do you think? How can we level this up? What are the mechanisms to be used? I would like to express my opinion on this point. It's not that it seems like this. The expenses are growing, and it has to do with the plans of infrastructure development in the Far East. It requires a lot of resources, a lot of funds. The Eastern Polygon, the development of the railways, of the motorways, airports, and other infrastructure. Our costs, our expenses are connected with the costs on education in general in the country. Expenses in defense and security, expenses connected with the special military operation. These are all expenses, and first we need to work on the income, and there are things to be discussed here. It doesn't mean that we need to increase the taxes. We need to increase the efficiency, the capacity, the production, introduce new technology to organize production in a better way. And I am convinced that we have the resources to work on. There are a lot of resources, and we have a lot of opportunities. And there are also other things that are worth to be mentioned. Some of our colleagues in the government consider that the deficit can be increased as well, and there is nothing terrible about that because the level of our debt load and our internal and external debts, it's quite acceptable. It's a low level. It guarantees the stability of the entire of the operation of our financial system and the budgetary system. The budget is based on the balanced system. It's not a simple work. It's a complex one that requires a lot of strength and energy to find the balance among different industries of the economy. The government is coping with it. Vladimir, I saw that at the previous sessions it was discussed at the Ministry of Finance and Sberbank. Within the budget, you are going to introduce artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence will help to shape the budget, if I understand it correctly. What do you think about the introduction of the artificial intelligence? I think that it's a positive thing. The artificial intelligence can only assist, at least at the moment, at this level of development of the technology in the area of artificial intelligence. As of today, the instrument can only be used as an assistance to take the decision on the level of the central bank and the government of Russia. I'm not going to ask if you can administrate the country with artificial intelligence. What do you think? Can we trust a key rate to be installed by the artificial intelligence? I'm sorry, Elvira. I just said that I'm convinced that the possibilities of the artificial intelligence can be used for any solutions, and they should be used to take decisions in all areas, including in the area of the responsibility of the central bank. But to take decisions of this sort, it shall be done by a human responsible for the decisions taken. As for artificial intelligence, we cannot take an. It's just an instrument, and these are humans that should work. Our Chinese participant, our friend from China, he has a very high political rank. He is a member of the political bureau of the Socialist Party of China. He gave expert evaluations in the area of in the very serious area of artificial intelligence. People should take the decisions, and these are the people who should work in China and in Russia, including using the artificial intelligence and developing these instruments.
Well, I hope artificial intelligence won't substitute me. I'm speaking about hosts like me. Why? Why do you say so? Because there are neural networks and deep fake. Oh, my career is over, or it is in danger. Well, but what about humane relations if only artificial intelligence asks you questions? Well, maybe people will develop with assistance of artificial intelligence. Dear guests, if there are some comments or questions in addition to what we have been discussing, because we are close to the end, I have one last question on my list, and it will be more of a philosophical nature, and it will be about Far East. Oh, I don't see any hands raised in the audience. Well, I believe that the Far East lives in the future, because in Moscow it is the morning, and now here it is the afternoon already. The global world is quite special now. We speak about turbulence, and it is not only about Ukraine, it is the Israeli-Palestine crisis and others. My question is, what is the future of Russia in this world? And what about the world of the coming decades? Will it be more of a Western type or an Eastern type? You know, it will be multipolar. Thank you. Right. Then I can just express my gratitude for this honor for me to ask these questions. And a final thing, I'm so grateful to the Far East for this warm welcome